Hi guys, it's Blackie and Bear with the Old Wayz Part 5, Chapter 5. And this time we were going to talk about barter. Okay, now barter can be a legally touchy subject because what it means is you're going to exchange something with somebody else.
With no money.
With no money. That's the idea, as long as there's no money involved. So if I have a garden and I've got plenty of tomatoes and Bear doesn't have any tomatoes but he's got hot peppers and I want to exchange, we could work out a how much to how much exchange rate and swap it. That's barter. Now also barter can be you exchanging your time, you know. It's just simply how you're taking something you've got in abundance and exchanging it to somebody else for something they've got in abundance. Now, like we said, food and all that, but give me an example of years and years ago. It's long gone now. But I had a friend up in Montgomery that he ran a bakery, little donut shop. And you know the bakery icing and stuff like that comes in 2.5 gallon, 5 gallon, and a 7 gallon bucket, depending on what it was. Well, he had all these buckets. And so he put up a sign that says, I have food grade buckets, what you got to trade? And so people coming in to buy the donuts would see that sign. Well, a lot of people wanted them buckets to put up dry seed or rice or whatever. And so he worked out a method of exchange, you know, you got this, I'll trade you this for these buckets, that type deal. So it was something he had in abundance that he was either going to recycle or throw away. But it's valuable, so he's exchanging it. You know, that's the whole thing. Now, from the money part of it, when you start getting into, I'll do this for money, that's when Uncle Sugar gets involved and he wants his cut of taxes. Then the state and the local want their taxes and etc. So you can see why it becomes a touchy subject real quick. Usually it's if you're below this magical invisible threshold that seems to vary from state to state, they don't care.
Yeah.
Above that line they do care. That's going to just vary with wherever you're at. But let me show you how sometimes you can barter your skills or ability for what you really want. Many years ago when I was doing buckskinning, I wanted deer hides to try to tan them to make buckskin. And here locally we had this large army base, and back in them days they were taking 600 bucks, just bucks, off that place per year. And every deer had to be brought to the game warden shack and they had to be checked in, measured, tagged, etc. And then immediately over here to the left was a cleaning area that had, you know, the gimbals to hang it up, places you could hose off, the stainless steel table you could cut up meat, etc. Well, I got the idea, I'll just go out there, and since there's so many people getting deer, I should be able to pick up some deer hide, because they're going to throw it away. Well, that was a two-edged sword. Yes, I could have all that deer hide I wanted, but the person that was cleaning the deer didn't care about the hides, so they were just destroying these hides. You get pieces, which was great in my training. When I would, get a piece of deer hide that big, I could practice small, etc. But I wanted the whole hide, and I didn't want all these hack marks on it where it looked like a ninja warrior that was drunk going at it.
Nothing worse than a drunk ninja with a sword.
It was just hack marks all over it. And so I got the bright idea. I just went out there one Saturday and I got there in time. When somebody came in, I said, 20 bucks, I'll clean your deer for you.
Oops.
Well, suddenly I had a line. And I would clean the deer. That means I got to skin it myself, right? Well, I wanted the hide. So I would take that hide off, and I was an old redneck boy from Alabama, knew how to clean deer in a hurry. So I would get that hide off, and I'd put the hide in the back of my pickup truck. And about half the time, I wouldn't be halfway done butchering a deer before they'd say, well, that's enough of me, you can have the rest of it. I only want the back strap, and I want the ham. They don't want the rest of the deer. Well, I ended up with like a half a deer. So I got paid 20 bucks. I got the hide I wanted, and I did that. So over that weekend, I cleaned 20 deer and ended up with 6 deer worth of meat and 20 hides, and got paid 20 bucks. So you see, I bartered my skill to these guys that had just got the deer. In exchange, I got what I really wanted. I got paid, I got money, I got the hides, and I got food all out of that in one whack. Now you cannot, in the state of Alabama, I don't know about where you're at, you cannot sell wild game in the state of Alabama. I can give a deer to him. I can exchange deer for the beans and stuff he's got in his freezer. But I cannot sell a deer or sell wild game to somebody. That's illegal in the state for a good reason, and I agree with it. But when you're looking at bartering, what skills do you have? What resources do you have in abundance that you can turn around and exchange to somebody else? Now, what you got to add?
Well, just 2 thoughts right now. You were talking about it being illegal to sell wild game. Years ago, a hunter could bring anything he didn't want to the local sheriff, and then he would put it into his larder at the jail. And most of these guys are local. They grew up eating deer, and somebody decided they didn't like deer and sued, and that's where all that came to an end.
Yep.
Sad part is all of that meat that would have been used gets thrown in a ditch. Second thought was one of the best examples that I can think of comes from the movie Stalag 17 with William Holden. You remember Stalag 17?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Holden plays a sergeant by the name of J.J. Septon, and according to one of the other prisoners in the barracks, he's richer than his own mother, because he's got 2 foot lockers full of stuff that he's traded for, and his basic trade good was cigarettes.
Yep.
I don't advise that, because that too is illegal, can be illegal. But just check your local rules and regulations before you do that. I don't have anything as glamorous as what Blackie was just saying in my background, but
I'm here to tell you, when you're up to hip deep in guts and stuff, it don't seem that glamorous, But the thing about it is everything has value to some point. Okay.
And that could be a non-monetary value.
Exactly.
That's the key behind barter. And another key behind barter is any successful trade is where both parties can leave happy. Mm-hmm. That's a successful trade, regardless of what. If I had something that was of not very great value to me, I could give it to him. I could trade it to him because it might have great value to him. Mm-hmm. But any trade where both parties can leave happy is a good trade.
Mm-hmm. I had a trade I made with a guy that I had a Chevy pickup truck that had a blown engine in it. I was coming back from a trip, the oil pump went out going down the interstate, and that was it. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was too late. And I had kept the truck about 2 months looking around, and then I found a guy about 25 miles north of where I live, and he had the same make and model pickup truck sitting behind his barn that had been rear-ended. And it accordioned it up, forget it. He got hit by a dump truck at high speed.
I can see this one coming.
There was not a thing wrong with that motor, but I went up there and I talked to him. I said, how much would you take for that truck, or how much would you take for that motor? And we talked back and forth, and as luck would have it, since I did some gunsmithing back in them days, he had 2 or 3 guns that needed a little bit of work. I agreed to do the work. In exchange, I got that truck. Well, I got a better hood. 2 front doors were better than mine. The motor, the bumper was better than mine. And so by doing that simple exchange, now I take my parts off that I want. I put them onto my truck. I take my old parts and just connect them. Really don't put them back on, but connect them back to that dead truck. And then we called up the junkyard because they had a thing that if you donated it, if you sent a vehicle to the junkyard, you got to write so much off your taxes. An older vehicle, if it was more than 10 years old, you could write, I think it was $500 off your taxes at that time, state tax. So I called them up and said, come get it. So I got to write that off my taxes as well for the rest of the truck I didn't want. There is always a way, if you sit and think about it, to barter something. I bet you've got some sort of skill or ability. Also, now we're talking about getting gear. Excuse me, guys. You go and look at a lot of the Facebook and places are going to have buy, sell, trade.
Right.
A lot of your clubs will have buy, sell, trade. If you're part of a website or something that's some sort of woodscraft, bushcraft, whatever, say, hey guys, contact the moderator and say, is it allowed on here to do trades? Not necessarily sales, but trades. A lot of times you're not allowed to do sales, but you are allowed to do trades.
Yeah, Facebook's real ticky about sales.
Yeah, because of money.
Real ticky about it.
But at the same time, I've had things where I've had knives and things that I did not want. And somebody else had a piece of gear that I did want and they're willing to trade for that knife. And so don't be, upset. And the value of whatever you have is whatever value you put in it. Yes, I know I paid how many hundreds of dollars for this knife, blah, 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 blah. That's true. A product is only worth what I'm willing to pay for it. See? I don't care what you paid for it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. What do you value it now? If it's something that I really don't like, I really don't care, but I really like this, whatever this is, and I'd be willing to trade that for that, and he's happy with it, that's a good trade. That's all you got to do. It's simply as easy as that, is trading. Church groups, a lot of times, a great place to look around and find things to trade. I get a lot of, like I said, we're close to a military base, and we get a lot of GIs come in, and they're not going to be here long enough to put down roots. They're only here for a few months, maybe a year. And a lot of them want to hunt. Well, we're down here in the south where you got big hogs. There's 1,000-pound hog is not unheard of. 600, 700, 800 pounds is common. You can find them. Yeah, most time you're going to find 200 or 300 pounder. But where I hold my gathering, 2 years ago down there at Sampson, that guy went out to feed his dog and there was an 800-pound hog standing in his backyard eating the dog food. Yeah. He just went and got a 38 and popped it. But back to what these guys want is they want to be able to hunt hogs. Well, you go and say, can I come hunt hog on your land? Most people kind of turn a dim eye to that because you're an unknown. But what I recommended they do, because they're wanting it from me, is go to wherever farmers hang out and put you up a 3x5 index card, the farmers co-op, the whatever, says, do you have a problem hog? Call me. I'll come get it free of charge just for the meat. That's all you got to do.
They will probably call you because a wild hog is just a four-legged bulldozer.
Destroys everything.
They tear up everything they come across. And in an earlier video, we made mention of the fact of how smart they are. If you're out there in the woods looking for a hog, if you find one, do not turn your back. Do not lose track of where everything is at. These folks, I really admire. I have a lot of mixed emotions about these folks that go after them with Bowie knives.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
No.
Not me.
No. I pumped 12 gauge slug and buck. I had an extended mag on a 870 one time. We had about a 600 pounder and she was mad. Mm-hmm. And we were in a narrow gully and she come boiling down and I pumped 10 rounds into her and had to jump up in there for her to go under me. Yes, she was dead probably 30 yards away, but I hit her 10 good times and she kept coming.
That's very important, 30 yards.
Yeah, that was a real important 30 yards.
And people don't understand, but on the skull of a boar hog, we're getting off on a rabbit trail here, but the skull of a boar hog is about a 1/2 inch thick of reinforced bone.
He's a fighter.
He is built to fight. He is a tank. He is a bulldozer with 4 legs.
Yeah.
And they have tusks about that long.
Up to 10 inches.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Yeah, you can find them depending on their age. They'll average about like that. And the hide on these things is, the
An
hide
inch
is
thick.
thick. Yeah, the hide, the fat layer. That's why you can't shoot through them. A shotgun is almost useless.
A bird shot, it's got to be slug
Oh,
and
yeah.
buck, or it won't go through it.
Yes, slugs at least. A lot of people use rifles. But to get back to the conversation of bartering, it's like I keep saying, like we keep saying, any trade that you can walk away from where both parties are happy is a good trade. And we can't tell you that object A is worth X and object B is worth, Y. Only you, the two participants in the discussion can do that. But if you can paint, you have a durable trade that can be applied to a barter. If you have some carpentry skills, mechanic skills, they can be applied as a barter. There used to be a couple ladies around town here, they've since passed on, who were just phenomenal bakers. And they would barter cakes for birthdays, anniversaries, any other special occasion. They would be glad to do that.
Well, down at Slocum, there's a big farmer's market. It's a big farm is what it is. And on the side of the road, he is so big, he has just set up his own little storefront. He's got, during season, he's got bags of peas, bags of butter beans, whatever. He's selling his surplus. And I've gone down there many times to get field peas and stuff like that. And when you come in the door, there's a cork board with business cards and stuff stuck on it like that, where people have come in and wanted to barter. And I remember I went in one time and there was a thing up there that said, I have tomatoes, squash, and watermelons. We'll trade for, and he listed the 4 things he's looking for, on the card, and a phone number. This place does peas, butter beans, peppers, cucumbers. That's it. So they don't have tomatoes and etc. Now the guy down the road, he does a ton of tomatoes, and he also does strawberries and something else. So you can work out deals here if you just find out. Wherever you work, I bet there's people there that's got stuff that'll trade for something.
And when you get really good at it, you can go to this guy and say, I would like to trade for A, B, and C, which this other guy over here wants. And he's got 3 things that you really want.
Yeah.
And then you can take this to him and do another deal.
Yeah.
That takes skill.
There's a campfire legend that I have to tell the story. It takes forever, but I ain't gonna tell it to you now. But in it, my wife fell in love with this blue blanket, and it was a Earls of Whitney blue blanket. And I happened upon one of those blankets at an event, and I asked the guy how much it was, and it was $180.
That's good.
It was a good price, but I didn't have $180. And so I asked him, I said, okay, you've said it's $180. What is the bottom amount that you would take for that, cash in hand right now? And he said, $180. I said, okay, well, we've established what is the level right there. I don't have 180. What do I have that you'd be interested in? Well, we worked trade for part of it. I was still about $100 short. But then I asked him, I said, okay, in this old huge camp, there's a lot of people here. Is there anything you've seen anywhere else that you wanted? He said, yeah, I wanted something down here at such and such. So I went down there and I found that guy, and I said, what you got to have for that? And that led to another trade. And it went through 11 trades. It took 5.5 hours, but 11 trades later, I had a blue blanket, and all it cost me was 1 pair of shoes and 1 pair of socks. But there were 11 trades involved to get that one pair of shoes, one pair of socks.
Persistence works.
Persistence works, and it can be very complicated. But the bottom line is, it doesn't have to be. Now, as far as money, eBay, you know, take the stuff you don't need, put it on eBay or Etsy or something. Take the stuff that you go around and you're at a garage sale and you say, hey, that's pretty cool. You might pick that up, roll it over and put it to make a little money to go buy what you really want. See, it doesn't have to be sometimes a one-to-one. Perhaps you can't find it used or in surplus. You're wanting this such and such pack, or you're wanting a Blackbird knife, you know, in a sheath. Well, find the other things you can work with and build up to this. It doesn't have to be a one-hit wonder. The best thing I've found to help me save money to it was I would take an envelope and I would write on the front of it what it was for and how much I needed in that envelope. And I'd put $20 out of the paycheck in it. And then if I found a trade as it just rolled off and somebody says, how much money you need for that? I wouldn't really, I'll take 40 bucks for it. If they said, yeah, that money went into that thing to buy that knife. You'd be amazed how it will nickel and dime add up to where you can get what you really want. I'm doing an exchange, a trade, a barter, whatever to get what we really need. Like Barrett earlier said in one of the earlier videos about food grade buckets, bakeries. All the icing and everything's got to come in with them buckets.
Yes.
And most times you go in and you're nice about it and you say, look, I need 3 or 4 buckets. Will you sell me a bucket? You can probably get a bucket for a couple bucks. They're going to recycle them, but most time they're getting pennies on the dollar. So if he can get $2 a piece out of them, hey, $5, hey.
And that's getting increasingly popular. I know very well one of the co-owners of one of our local sandwich shops, and I was talking to him about picking up a pickle bucket or several, and he kind of chuckled, and I said, what? He said, well, you're on the list. So,
Yeah.
you know, be willing to wait under some circumstances, be willing to dig deeper under others. It's not hard. It does take a little thought. We have pushed the idea since day one that this is not hard. Old Wayz is not hard. It does not have to be a steep learning curve, but it does require a little bit of thought. You can't just
Blindly
jump. If you're exceptionally fortunate, that will work, but the chances of it not far outexceed the chances of it actually working.
Especially when we're looking at, like, you know, what do I need? Well, like, for example, Mel in the Mountains, she does buckskin. She gets a pretty good price for a piece of buckskin because how labor intensive it is. So if somebody comes up to her and wants to buy a hunk of buckskin, she's going to charge you about $100 because of the sheer amount of hours she's got in it. She can't get her money out of it for the actual pay. If you paid her $5 an hour, she'd be losing money. But at the same time, she'll teach you how to transform a hide into buckskin. She'll teach you how to do it for far cheaper. So what you need to do is, what skills, what resources do I need? Okay?
For barter?
No, just let's start with this. I need, let's say, food grade buckets because I want to put up a larder. Let's say I want to learn about canning, so I'm going to need canning jars and lids and stuff. I want to do this. I need that. I need a better knife. Okay? Make a list of what I need. That keeps you in focus. Now, the buckets, we just gave you an idea. Bakeries, stuff like that. See if you can find a dealer to get those buckets cheap and available and easy. Once you find a source of those buckets where you can get them and you hit your needs, then you ask around your buddies, hey, I got some extra buckets, because you get a few extra see if you can barter them buckets for somebody else for something that they got.
Another quick barter item along that is a plastic bucket. Coffee comes in a small plastic bucket, which is, you have the big can, the big round like number 10 can. That is, they're not metal anymore. They're pressed paper lined with an aluminum, a plasticized aluminum. But the next step down from that is a self-sealing plastic container with a locking lid.
Yeah.
And if you drink coffee, don't throw your box out. Don't throw your can
Those
out.
are food grade and can be used as a storage unit.
As is. When we were doing the Wayz 4, I was sitting there thinking, you dummy. Because I have right now sitting in my pantry about 4 of those little coffee cans with 72 hours worth of food in them. One for me, one for my son, and one for my daughter. My 2 older boys are kind of on their own, but
Yeah.
you know, I have 3 of those buckets, and I have got them partitioned out. It's all freeze dried stuff, but there's approximately 72 hours worth of food in that little container. Now here's the barter. Okay, let's just, for illustration purposes, this is my can. He comes up to me and he says, I'm desperate. We've evacuated from a hurricane, from a flood, pick your poison. He's running short on food. I'm not. Now, what have you got to trade for 72 hours worth of food?
Yeah.
Not that I'm not going to help you out, but I may need something that you have in abundance.
Exactly.
And in the trade, he gets what he needs, I get what I need, and we both go our separate ways happy. That's a good trade.
That's one of the things that you need to consider. A friend of mine, that he was a bartender for years, and he'd come out of the military in the late 1970s, and he kind of hitchhiked around, and he'd get to a town, and he said most towns had a bar, and he'd go in there and he'd talk to the bartender and said, look, you know, you need a little extra help, I can work a couple of shifts for you, just pay me this or trade me that. In fact, if you want to just sit over on the stool and watch me to make sure I don't screw up, that's fine. You get your wages, I get whatever. And he would work out barters, say, where he went. He said if they didn't have a bar, he said, I bet you they got a car wash. And he said, I'd bet a car wash and tell them, look, I'm trying to make a little money. I'll tell you what, I've got a bucket, suds, and I will wash your car where it's $5 to run the little thing right there. I'll do it for $5, but I'll do it by hand. You can stand there and watch me. He'd work out a deal, you know, and by bit, he'd get what he needed. Well, he'd ended up with a vehicle. He'd ended up with everything, and he made sure to carry things with him that were tradable. Pocket watches were very tradable. He said I'd stop at all the garage sales and the flea market stuff, and I'd look around and I'd find stuff that was at a real good price for what it was. I'd throw it in the trade bucket. And when I got up there, I needed money. Well, how about a watch for $2? How about a such and such for $5 worth of gas? And he had stuff he could sacrifice for what he really needed.
That echoes the story that he told in Wayz 4 about the guy that came out of South Florida heading to North Georgia, who had items in the trunk of his car
That he could trade for gas.
Not only gas, but food, possibly small clothing items, just whatever. I can look around my house right now and say, you know, I really don't have a lot to trade, but Blackie could walk in and go, oh my gosh, that's...
I've been wanting one of them right there.
I've been looking for that for 20 years, and you've had it all this time. Well,
and didn't really think that much about it because it's just there. Yeah. I had a book. Mark Baker wrote Sons of the Trackless Forest. And I know Mark, and way back in the day camped with him. And he knew my group that I was part of, and so when he first got that book, I bought it from him.
He's the next celebrity I want to meet.
Yeah. And I paid him for the book. You know, it's a real thick book, and it's a thesis on the long hunters. You know, I read the book, kept it, put it on my book rack. Then one day, many years later, I was sitting there and I was looking at a buy-sell trade thing in one of the bushcraft things, and somebody was mentioning that these books are just unobtainable. They're $400 and something on eBay if you can find one, and blah 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 and all like this. And I went, what are they talking about? And I zoomed in. It said Sons of the Trackless Forest. Pulled the book out. Went, this one? And I, took a picture and posted it. I said, is this the book you're talking about? I had offers from all over the country like that. Dude, what do you want? Name it. Up to $400. Say the word. I was able to barter that book for something I'd really been wanting for quite a while. I've read the book. It's up here. I remember it. But the fact that that book was suddenly that valuable, you don't know what you've got. Look at what you've got in abundance, what you're willing to part with. There's sacred things that I'm never going to get rid of because of memories or passed down to me or whatever. And then there's a lot of stuff that, I could replace this if I had to, And so for that reason, look at what you got, look at what you can get rid of. Assume what you have has value. Be willing to be told no. Just because I think this is worth $500 right here, and he won't trade me a $50 whatever for a $500 knife, I shouldn't get mad. It's not valuable to him. See?
He may have a $500 knife.
He may not be interested. Like somebody told me, said a parachute is awful bulky and nobody wants to sit on one until the plane's going down and everybody wants a parachute.
Yep.
So
motivated sales.
Motivated sale, Same thing with the survival stuff where they don't care that much. I don't need a survival kit until the blizzard's about to hit or the hurricane or the earthquake. And it is.
As we've been growing this series, we've had a lot of really good feedback. And people are making suggestions and comments that are helpful to, they've got a little nugget of knowledge that we may not have. And by putting it in the comments, it's like, oh yeah. Well, we're going into some possibly, would you say, uncertain times?
Yeah.
And to know this talent, it is a skill and a talent, to do it successfully. Going into the times that we are possibly going into, it helps because the smallest object may have the greatest value. It just depends
on what it is. If you've got, go through your medicine cabinet and see the old pills that you got. Don't be giving them away. I had a friend of mine saying, they're throwing away their old medicine. I said, whoa, what are you throwing away? Oh, it's leftover antibiotics from where, said just got sick a year ago. No, you hang on to them. And the medical field and all will say, no, Blackie, you have to throw all that away or turn it back in and everything else. I paid for it, it's mine, and it was issued to me, right? It's those type of things that your resources that you have, should it get to where you can't get them. We have seen with COVID where there were no hospital beds available. Here in Alabama, we had a guy that died. He was having a heart attack in Birmingham, Alabama, which is UAB, huge medical complex up there.
My alma mater.
Yeah, huge. And they had to ship him 4 hours away to Jackson, Mississippi, to the closest available bed. He died en route because there were no beds available anywhere closer than 4 hours away. That's how bad it can get relatively quickly. So having any resources beats no resources.
If you have a baby and have bought several cans of baby formula, there are parents out there who would do almost anything to have access to one of your cans.
Yeah.
I'm not saying hold them hostage. I'm not saying gouge them on the price. But there may be some little trade good that they've got
They
that
can
they're
barter.
willing to barter. Toilet paper,
Twinkies.
Twinkies.
How much have we seen in the last few years of these things? 10 years ago, you'd have laughed them out of the room if they said we're going to have a shortage of toilet paper,
Yes.
shortage of Twinkies, no hospital beds, gas would be $8 a gallon.
Yeah.
We'd have laughed them out of the room 5 years ago. Not anymore. Now we're just expecting it.
Yeah, and gas.
And if something that he brought up, little ones, you've got little babies. The clothes that your kid just outgrew,
Save them.
clean them, save them, organize them, bundle them up. Like these are boy shirts, size such and such, girls such and such. Barter those because there's a young mama coming up. They ain't got a lot of money, but by God, she's got a garden. You know, mama will trade you peas and butter beans for them.
Yes.
You know, because she's got something. Sometimes it isn't an automatic, what I got is what I'm trade up. It's what are they willing to trade you for this? And being able to say, I got 10 size 3 or whatever shirts. There's babies out there need shirts and they ain't got a lot of money right now.
Right.
You know, that extra set of tires, you just took a set of tires off your truck to put new tires on. I always get my old tires back because I don't wait till tires wore out. It's not threadbare, it's just, it's got some miles on, I'm ready to change tires. I want to change tires for me about every 2 to 3 years, depending. But I've got several friends that use exactly the same tire, and they're poor. And so I traded 4 used tires for a half a hog 2 years ago.
And both parties left happy.
He was tickled to death because he's poor. He ain't got no money, and he works on a farm. And half the time his truck's running old, just junk tires out of a junkyard.
Yeah.
And I had 4 tires with good tread on it, and I traded him for a half a hog. For 4 tires that I was going to a landfill, guys. You know, I turned around and used that. Everything is a resource. If you just think about it, what am I throwing away? What is the resource? We grew up where you had jelly jars for glasses.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. One of my favorite glasses growing up was a jelly jar.
a jelly jar. I mean, it was, my grandmama and everything, we didn't throw crap away. Her thing was, before you threw it in the garbage, stand there and think, if you can't come up with 3 things to do with that,
Then toss it.
then toss it. Do I need another jelly jar? No, we got plenty. Do we need something to store nuts and bolts in? No, we got plenty. Do I need something to start a planter with? No, got plenty. And I'd sit there and just stand there at the garbage can and run through like 20, 30 things. No, no, no. And I'd always look at Granny. She, no, I ain't either. Throw it away. And we'd throw it away. You know, kind of grudgingly. You know, the food scraps, they went into the garden.
As a matter of fact, that brought up an old memory. Jelly manufacturers, when we were kids, made the jar look like a glass.
Yes,
When you
intentionally.
popped the top on it, it was a drinking glass. So, I mean, a lot of good memories.
Oh yeah, but we used mayonnaise jars to carry soup to work, stew, things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that we recycled and reused in those days, and that can still work today, depending. Like he's saying, the coffee cans are food grade resealable. Why throw them away? I bet you if you got about 10 of them and you got on a buy-sell trade and say, I got 10 food grade, take the label off of them. Say it's 10 food grade, clean, ready to go. If you need to store rice or dry beans or something, I'll take $2 a piece for them, or $1 a piece for them, whatever.
Or if you just want to store nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I'm willing to barter. And they say that, I'm willing to barter, what you got to trade? You'll be amazed what people are willing to trade.
But keep it legal.
And if
By all means, keep it legal.
I put it up and nobody's interested, it goes back into the larder. 2 or 3 months now, I'll put it back up. Sooner or later. That's one of the reasons you look at grandma and grandpa's house, and they call them hoarders. Man, there's crap everywhere. The barn's full of boards, whatever. Well, they had learned how to recycle and reuse everything. So to you and me, man, that's a empty coffee can. That's a piece of junk. They saw it as a storage bin, a food storage thing, something they could put paint in, something they could, whatever, you know.
One of my fondest memories of spending time with my granddaddy was walking behind him on the farm, around the barns, or around some rental properties that we used to have, and picking up the old nails. He would tell me, "Boy, go over and grab that nail." And then he would give me a hammer on my grandmother's front porch and say, "Straighten that out for me." And I was hooked. I was spending time with my granddaddy. I was providing him with a resource that he needed, which was a reasonably straight nail. Mm-hmm. It didn't cost him anything except spending time with me.
I got a friend of mine, his 2 grandsons come to visit him. And so they live out on a county road, and at the end of that county road is a little honky-tonk bar. Well, it's closed on Sunday, of course. So the kids come over Sunday afternoon, and so what Granddaddy and the 2 boys do is they walk up and down the county road, picking up cans. And they go along, and the boys run out and they pick up cans, and he totes the sack. And then when they get done picking up the cans, he takes them to Dairy Queen and gets them a milkshake or a sundae. Well, he gets, everybody leaving the bar is taking their beer cans and throwing them out the window. And so he said, I picked up 4 garbage bags of beer cans on a Sunday afternoon. He said, I just fill up the shed, and when it's solid full, I'll pull my trailer around, load it up, and take it to the place and sell the aluminum. It's free money to him, but somebody considers this worthless. That's when you say, you're not going to use that?
Right.
And shooting, when back in 2008, when we had the first big ammo crunch, for many, many years, we'd go shooting on a public range or whatever, or me and you'd go shooting or whoever, and we'd get done shooting, I go, you're not going to pick up your brass? Nah, I'm shy, I don't reload, I ain't going to do that, I ain't going to do that. I go, okay, I'd pick it up. And I'd put it in 5-gallon bucket.
And dig lead out of the bank.
And dig lead out of the bank. But I would put it in that 5-gallon buckets in the middle of January or whatever, when it was raining and cold and wasn't nothing to do. I'd put a tarp out in the middle of the living room floor, and I'd dump that bucket of brass out, and I'd go through the brass. And I'd divide it out. I'd tumble it and clean it, put it in Ziploc bags of 100, and then when that big crunch hit, which that gave me brass if I needed brass, I'd reload for me. But I had all these calibers I didn't load. And so I went down there with the back of my pickup truck with like a dozen 5-gallon buckets full of 100 rounds per Ziploc bag of brass calibers I didn't shoot. I made $1,800 selling brass that people had walked away from because you couldn't get brass for reloading, and people were begging anybody. They had components but no brass to reload. And here I was pulling up, hey guys, I got brass. Bingo. So it's a resource. I know people that go around and pick up pecans for halves.
Well, that's like we were talking about in the first episode, first chapter. Acorns.
Yeah.
It grows on trees and you can pick it up off the ground.
It's very labor intensive, but you can make bread out of it.
You can do it. And then you can trade that bread.
Now, that's one of them things where, yeah, I can trade that bread, but that is way too dear a work to give away lightly, It's like...
I didn't say give it away lightly. I just said trade it.
I had a cousin that he'd worked in the Marine Corps in motor pool. And he could break down a Ford or Chevy engine, mic it all out, take it over to his machines and line hone it, bore it, everything, and rebuild an engine in one day.
He was good.
He was good. He would just know what he needed to do it right then. He had the tools of equipment. So you could literally pull your truck up in front of his place. It wasn't a business, it was his barn. Drop your truck off on Saturday, come pick it up on Monday. He'd rebuild the engine from end to end. Of course, now you're going to pay him for his time.
And his expertise.
But he'd point out a new engine costs this, and I can rebuild it for this. So long as we get in there and all the bolts are in where they're supposed to be and nothing's twisted sideways or turned into a pretzel,
Yeah.
I can rebuild it. And he would fresh it out, put new rings and everything in it, crank it up, and great. And a lot of us old guys would barter with him. I traded deer meat for 2 years, equal a rebuild. He said, this much deer meat and I'll rebuild it. Well, that was 6 deer, and it took me 2 years to get 6 deer that I could spare where I wasn't taking care of the food, where it was an extra deer. But I did that. I knew people that horse traded him whatever. You know, you got anything in abundance. I don't care what it is. You'll be amazed what can be traded. You just have to say, I have this. What am I bid? It's that simple. And then don't look so much at the value as look of, I want that. Because I put this up and he said, there, I've got that. That's something I could use. I've been hunting that for a while. It's something odd or rare or something that's just too dang expensive where I can't afford it. See? You never know what somebody's willing to trade. And sometimes it's shocking, you know, and I feel bad. When I was doing gunsmith years ago, I had a guy come in, he called me up. And he said that he had a Smith & Wesson 357 he wanted to trade, and I had a deer hunting rifle that he'd looked at. He said, would you take the trade for it? And I said, yeah, that's close in value, about $450. Yeah, okay, we'll look at it. And he showed up, and he brings out and opens up this Smith 357 from the Smith Custom Shop in the display case with the, you know, that's a $1,000 gun. And never been fired. He's had it since 1968. Here it is, 1988.
Yeah.
You know, and I went, dude, this is worth a whole lot more. He said, no, not to me, it ain't. I've had it. My wife gave it to me when I got back from Vietnam. I don't really care anything about it. My wrists are too bad to shoot it. I want a deer rifle. I'll trade you.
That reminds me of a story. I had a Glock 45 ACP, 45 caliber Glock, but it was a miniature Glock, and I couldn't hold it. Okay, it wouldn't fit in. It was too small for my hand, and I traded a cousin of mine. It was we were at our family reunion, and I was talking about it, and I showed it to him, and he said, what would you take and trade? Mm-hmm. I said, I don't know, what you got? And he started naming off items that he was willing to throw into the pot, and I wound up with a World War II issue German Mauser rifle. Mm-hmm. He was going to give me a one, what we call what's called a Rat Queen, one that's never seen the range. Didn't want that one. I wanted the one that had been knocked around a little bit because, you know, if I dropped it and broke it into 100 pieces, I'm not out much.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got a really, really nice Mauser rifle and 440 rounds of ammunition and a bayonet for the rifle. For that little
for a gun pistol. You couldn't shoot.
For a gun I had no use for because I couldn't shoot it. And, you know, he went away happy. I went away happy. Good trade.
I mean, that's the way it is. Anytime that you're looking at trading, one, stay within the law, guys. We're not advocating anything else here. I would certainly not go and want to trade a firearm to somebody who couldn't legally have such a thing, like a felon or something. That's a big no-no.
Big no-no.
So anytime we're saying like guns, educate yourself what you're doing. Ignorance don't count in front of the judge. Just because you didn't know that this guy had a felony 20 years ago, that don't count. See, it's the fact of what you did. So you have to be responsible. So guns and stuff, Bear and I know these people we're talking about, and so that's not a factor. Okay, when we're talking that, if nobody walked up and wanted to trade a gun, I'd say no, because I don't know. See?
If you know the person and you know their background, do it.
Yeah, it's just
But
something else to barter
he
then.
and I have bartered several items over the years,
Yeah,
and both of us have left happy.
yes. But anything that may be in some way controlled, don't be bartering medicine. That's a big no-no. So don't be bartering anything like that that's regulated or controlled. You need to educate yourself. But at the same time, if you were one of them that stocked up on baby formula, and your kids are getting to the age now they don't need baby formula anymore, you're in a really good place right now.
It's worth its weight in gold.
It's just that many people are begging for it. Gotta have it. How many people, if you had 8 or 10 cases of toilet paper a year or so ago, you would be doing all right. I remember my wife coming home, and she came in there and she said, "Okay, Mr. Woodscraft stuff, if we can't get toilet paper, what are we going to use?" And I told her, I already know where the Nature's toilet paper is. We can take care of that. That and just get a wash rag if you got to. But, you just got to flow with it a little bit. Look around at what's in demand and what you've got and what you can trade.
Be creative.
Yeah, be creative. Don't be afraid to say yes, and don't be afraid to say no. If a deal just don't feel right, whatever, don't do it. Your instinct is usually the best in that. And so if somebody comes up and they offer some sort of trade and it looks good, but your little bell keeps saying, I don't know, then don't do it.
Err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
If it looks sketchy in the least way, say no.
Say no.
No is a legitimate answer.
Yep. It's not being rude to be honest and say, thank you, but no, just not interested in that. And a lot of people will be kind of pushy in barter. That they really want that, and they kind of want to push you into this. They don't give a dang about. People like that you want to steer clear of, because how did they get that? You see a lot of stuff that gets stolen or whatever, and then you end up with it. I had somebody offer me a toolbox set one time. Big old nice toolbox set. And a guy I worked with, he brought it and I went out there and looked at it, and yeah, it had all the tools. Thing was, this guy was not mechanically inclined at all. He's one of them that would spend 10 days trying to do a puzzle. And this was tools for advanced type working on engines. I mean, all the extra little ones. No, this just didn't fit this guy. And so I said no. And then I got a hold of a buddy of mine that worked in law enforcement. I said, is anybody missing a big blue toolbox that's got a University of Oklahoma on top of it? And he said, yes, they are. Where did you see it? And I told him about it. That's where it's at. Not trying to be a snitch or nothing, but at the same time, use your instincts, guys. Barter should be friendly and equal to everybody, but just because if it sounds too good, it probably is too good. So don't get sucked into that. Well, anything else you want to add, sir?
I think we hit all the high spots.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard topic for me to translate directly to you. All I can do is give you ideas, because barter in itself it's kind of like checkers. You can learn in 10 minutes, but getting really, really good at it, it takes a little bit of effort. And so what you got to do is just take what you got in abundance, have a list of what you're looking for. Don't just randomly trade for whatever. I need this. Maybe you need storage shelves to put in, because we're going to put a larder in the kitchen, and I need storage shelves. Well, how much is a storage shelf unit at Harbor Freight? What can I trade to somebody to make the money to get that without having to put money out of my pocket? See? I ask around work, does anybody have any of these storage racks they're getting rid of? You'd be surprised. How many people? Yeah, we got 2. buy me lunch, I'll let you have it if you come pick them up. That happens a lot.
That's barter.
That's a barter. I'll buy you lunch, you let me have them 2 racks right there. A lot of people will do that, and that's how you get your stuff. That's how you grow your stuff without having to shell out money for everything.
It's also how you grow your skill level.
Yes, because down the line, the skill level is actually going to be more valuable than the monetary value. Because if things get bad, like they did in the last century during the Great Depression and etc., where there just wasn't any jobs, when there just wasn't anything on the store shelves and etc., and you had to be independent, that's when you're going to need the skills, and that's when you're going to need to know people like me and Bear, because you've got the skill I need, and I'm willing to trade what you need for your skill, whatever that is. Be it gardening, plumbing, rebuilding an engine,
Right.
whatever. You have specialized knowledge, that's worth my time to barter and trade to you.
And it circles back around, to borrow a phrase, to what we were talking about with durable trades. All those things that he mentioned are durable trades and can be bartered, as we were talking earlier, for items that you may need or that you could take in transit because you know this person over here needs them and they have something that you particularly want.
You can always find somebody that's got something if you look, and you've got a real advantage now, guys. You've got internet. You've got the ability to go on a buy, sell, trade and say, hey, I've got this. What am I bid? And I didn't have that. Bear didn't have that. You were just the people in your little local community, and the old Hornet or whatever. The old, what's that in Star Trek, the rules of acquisition and stuff like that, the river of resources of the Ferengi, where they talk about
Ferengi, yeah.
everybody has too much of one thing and not enough of another thing. And so the object of the game is to ride the river and exchange for what you got too much of for what you need. Everybody's that way. Well, now you've got one heck of a big river. You've got internet capability, and you can find people all over the country that are willing to trade with you, especially for this type of stuff. So be vigilant, have a list of what you really want. And sometimes the best thing to do is just go on there and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Has anybody got one they want to trade? You know, I see WC Knives. I love WC Knives, guys. But William has got a trade page just for his knives, where people that collect these knives can put on there because they got it, they liked it, but they don't love it, and they want to try something else. And they swap knives, they trade knives around. And so you can get the knife you want. You might have to trade 2 for 1 to get the bigger, nicer knife, but at the same time, it gives them that option. Most of your clubs and things like that on it have some sort of trade function. Don't be afraid to ask. Or start one. You know, go to the administrator and go, hey, can I put something up for trade, just see what somebody will offer? They don't have a problem. And you can say it's not, okay, you can't do it for money. Okay. You never know. Thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it. Bear, thank you very much. And we'll do another one pretty soon. Not sure on what yet, but we'll come up with something. If you've got a topic you want us to get into, or there's something about barter you want to share, put it down in the comments for us. You know, where you want to go next. What topic do you want to talk about? Throw it down there. Give me and Bear a direction to go.
I may have a kernel cooking on a fire. At some point, we're going to have to do that.
Well, I wanted us to do Dutch oven, and we're going to do beer bread, and I want to try Coca-Cola bread.
Okay.
You know, I thought what we'll do is just go get, you know, the big charcoal starter thing. And what we'll do is, we only need 1 or 2 of those.
I've got one. What you want to trade for it?
No. I got my own thing, but I'll bring charcoal, we'll put them in, we'll get them going. And that way you just sit your Dutch oven on top and heat it up on top of it. And then you take it off and put like 3 coals down, set it on top, put your stuff inside, and then put the coals on top. So we don't have to build up a big old fire, we can use charcoal. And I've been seeing about this Coca-Cola bread where it's just, you start with self-rising flour and you pour warm Coca-Cola in it and stir it up. That's it.
There, you can make almost any cake that you can find for sale in the grocery store with just a can of something. You can make it with diet drinks. You can make it with full flavored drinks. It doesn't matter. It's just those 2 items: the cake mix and the soft drink.
Yeah, because it's the carbon that's dissolved in it that makes it fizzy. It acts like yeast and puffs it up.
And it's got the sugar in it, and it's got the liquid in it. Mm-hmm. And I think we may have found our subject.
Well, now something I've been looking at. What is mayonnaise?
It's eggs and vinegar and oil.
Eggs and oil, that's it. So when they say you're putting mayonnaise into biscuits, and people go, ooh, if I said I'm putting eggs and oil in there, it's the same thing as long as I'm using real mayonnaise as eggs and oil.
The first recipe I ever learned to make biscuits with was mayonnaise biscuits.
Yeah, I learned early on to do that, but Granny didn't like them, but my sister taught me that one because she cheated. So, talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.